I wrote Hell's Drifter more or less out of, not so much out of inspiration, more so out of necessity.
Hard-working actors who don't mind getting the shit kicked out of them. I was like, yeah, I'm there.
I just went hell for leather. Whatever they wanted, I did.
I wrote Hell's Drifter more or less out of, not so much out of inspiration, more so out of necessity, because we were working on another project which sort of fell through, and obviously we had to do something. So I fell back on this idea that I had been writing, or rather it was in my head for the last 10 years. So I decided I would, pull that out of the vast archive in my brain and just sit down and have a go at it. But what happened was, I thought maybe it would just, run to 1 or 2 pages, but as it turns out, it just came out, it flowed, and I think I wrote the first draft of the script in about 5 days or something.
Well, it was almost a year ago now, and there was an open audition at Film Base in Dublin, and I think I was one of the last few people that Peter and Malcolm got to see, and well, basically I just went hell for leather. Whatever they wanted, I did. The guys asked me to get on the floor. I jumped on the floor, stuck a camera in my face. We went through a few scenes, and I remember the guys slipping out and conferring and coming back to me then with other scenes and letting me prepare. And I had this buzz, either maybe they really wanted me or they really hated me. I knew it was whatever it was an extreme of one or the other. So I'm hoping they wanted me. They got me, so that was that.
It was a very physical film, and I was like, I've never done anything like that before. I wouldn't mind doing something like that. And there's a lot of dialogue in it for both characters. But my character, Angela, she's a bit of a spunky lady, and she says what she thinks, and that's pretty cool. It's pretty similar to the way I am.
I finished writing the script around late September 2006. So I think we were auditioning by the end of October 2006. So that's like roughly 2 months or a little less. Auditioning for me is a very straightforward process. I don't do anything particularly fancy. I just get the actors to read a page of the script, and if I have 2 people in, I might try this person, say, reading the part of Angela, this person reading the part of Mary, and then I might alternate back and forth. But I don't particularly have any style, with regards to auditions. I just go with the flow. Basically the actor or the actress comes in, and I get them to read a line. And usually what I do is, just so there's a good balance of emotion, what I might do is I might have them read a passage that has a lot of anger in it, and then follow that up with a passage that has some other emotion like happiness or sadness or whatever. And that for me is key to the audition process. I think it was very, very obvious who was going to be in the movie, just from looking at, there was certain people that actually stood out. Like, I think Noel stood out a heck of a lot. Noel was definitely one of the best ones that came in there that day. Siobhan stood out as well. It was between Siobhan and another actress. Austin didn't really have to worry about auditioning as such, because when I wrote the script, Austin I already knew he was going to play the part of the Drifter. So Austin actually didn't audition for the part. You know, Austin already had the part. It was just, you know, a matter of whether or not Austin would take it. But just for you know, the sake of backing myself up and just having a little bit of insurance cover, there was another guy that actually attended the audition, and he had long hair and he had a long beard. And I said to myself that he would be definitely a good option if Austin didn't come through on playing the part. But thankfully Austin did, and the rest is history. It came down to two guys essentially for the role of Greg, and obviously one of them was Noel Ainger, who got the part, and obviously there was actually another actor involved as well, who I thought had a huge amount of potential. But what ultimately decided, you know, who got the role at the end of the day was Noel actually got down on the floor when I asked him to, you know, because the part of Greg, you know, he spends 99% of the time crawling on his belly in the dirt. I wanted to see the actor get down on the floor. So what happened was Noel was prepared to get down on the floor, but the other actor, because he was dressed in his Sunday best, refused. So because of that, I gave it to Noel.
Greg Wallace he's not likable for a start, which I find interesting, is to kind of make a seemingly unlikable character somewhat sympathetic, that like he's driven to that rather than he's just this two-dimensional shit basically. But yeah, he's an angry guy, very disrespectful to his woman, with or without good cause. He doesn't know one way or the other, but he's like that. Petty and small in ways when there's life-threatening situations, and they'll revert to their own little couple and they're bickering. So there's an interesting side to almost a surrealism in some of the scenes with that, where they revert back to just a kitchen sink drama in the middle of this life and death struggle. So there's interesting points to him. But overall, yeah, I definitely wouldn't like to be stuck with him on a train for more than an hour.
You're just kind of walking in when like sort of everyone else is settled in and they all kind of have a rough idea about how it's going to go and stuff. So I felt a little bit nervous starting off, admittedly. But no, it's been brilliant fun, brilliant learning curve as well. I actually haven't read the script. I haven't read the whole script either. I wasn't sent the whole thing. But I, you know, did obviously ask what like happens, who is Greg, who is the Drifter, and everything else.
Have you anything in common with the character?
Probably more than I care to admit, but definitely the anger thing. I think I don't have it naturally, but when I finally get there, it's hard to shake it off. You know, I think we all have that beast in us. So I think, yeah, you got to tap into your smaller, your pettier side. Luckily, I've years of failed relationships to tap into that and bring that there, you know, to kind of get into the headset, just take your own life experiences. So yeah, there's a lot of me and Greg, and there's a lot of Greg and me.
Right, I think we're ready to go. Noel's ready to go. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so you find yourself a good position. You do some recording behind the scenes. I'll go and attack the camera. Attack the camera! Attack! Commenced in December 2006. I had intended the production to actually begin a month prior to that, but what happened was something basically took place that became a trend for the 14 months we shot, and that was the country was besieged by a chain of freak weather conditions. So what happened was it was set back by maybe about a month or so, and I think we ended up shooting the first day about a week maybe before Christmas 2006, and then obviously we were forced to close down for Christmas. But then, unfortunately for us, we were besieged by yet more bad weather in the new year, in January 2007. So it was actually, I think it was mid-February or something, 2007, before we got back on the road again. But from that day in December 2006, something like 2 months elapsed before we commenced shooting again. I contacted this lady. She was going to work on the production side, holding the boom, and she sounded very, very enthusiastic over the phone, and she she was very positive and very optimistic about it, and she sounded very, very flexible, which is what you look for in a crew member. But on the day I turned up to meet her, just before we were going to the location to shoot, I heard somebody call my name, and I looked around. I couldn't see anybody, and then this little old woman came over to me, of about 60 something.
Yeah, I remember Peter ringing me about this old lady who would leave. It sort of reminded me of having this sort of twisted, weird, sort of fatal attraction sort of vibe to it, where she literally wouldn't take no for an answer.
I said, "Are you so-and-so?" And she said, "Yeah, I am." And I wanted to say I thought you would have been younger, but I couldn't. So then basically I set about, for the next half an hour before the train came, I set about trying to convince her to go home, and she wouldn't. So I was just basically talking to her non-stop, telling her, well, there's no toilets, it's all guys, it's going to an isolated location, it's going to be terrible, it's going to be a nightmare, you're not going to like it, it's going to be very, very tough. And she just wouldn't. She wouldn't back down. So finally I just turned to her and I said, look, I think seriously you'll have to give this a miss. I don't think you're up to this. So she agreed with me, and she thanked me, and she left. And so then it was just me showing up on the location with a microphone in one hand and a camera in the other.
I have to say now, Austin, Siobhan, Eric, Rob, they're a great bunch. Siobhan I've worked with before, so we have a nice little shorthand when we're doing our scenes that we don't have to pussyfoot around issues, we just go and we do it. So that's just makes it a little easier, and she's very giving as an actress, so we really could just bounce off each other. And Austin now is an anomaly in my view, because he looks so foreboding, and he's perfectly cast as the Drifter. He's just someone, when you see him, it's like, well, here could be trouble, but a nicer, kinder, more gentle soul I haven't met. So he's quite interesting as a person to talk to. Fascinating stories out of him and everything. And Eric I didn't get to work with too much. We just had the one scene together, but I did bump into him since then, and we'll see each other again. But nice guy, a lot of enthusiasm. Putting it all in, even for that one scene. There are no small parts, only small actors, and he certainly made that part his own. And Rob, another bright guy. I think we'll see a lot of Rob in the future. I think he's up and coming. He's going to finish his training and get out there. I think we'll see a lot of him.
I have much love for Austin and Noel. That is their names, right? Oh no, yeah, they're great. I've worked with Noel before on loads of projects, and Austin's hilarious. Despite not having any dialogue in the film, he's fucking brilliant. And Noel's a great actor. It's a pleasure to work with him.
We're being delayed by two chatterboxes who are actually out talking about their dogs. They're two dog lovers. So
who doesn't love dogs?
Oh yeah, well, I love dogs too, but
oh, yeah.
I don't make a religion out of them.
That's it, yeah.
So we have our first round of crufts.
Yeah.
Bubble up on the hill.
Best in show.
Yeah, so we just have to be a little bit patient here, and she's supposed to be going back down into the forest, so we just have to hold tight, and maybe eventually she might get up and move. Yeah, do what pity Austin wasn't here. We could have got Austin to frighten him.
Austin would frighten him straight away, yeah. One look.
Yeah. Crush them!
Crush them. Tell me about that, yeah. Or I think you were.
The best one of all was this.
The line roar.
No, when he was supposed to be, Stephen said to him, "Now, Austin, you get the axe, you chop her, then you bend down and you eat her." And literally, from our vantage point, it looked like he was eating her out. It looked like two legs, and all we saw was Austin going like this.
Austin could be the Irish Ron Jeremy.
Yeah.
Some strategic shaving. A couple of years on it.
That's a good one. Ron Jeremy. Redhead and all, you know.
There you go.
The Irish version has to have red hair.
Yeah, exactly.
That was good. That's better. He came in the right direction this time.
It's always good. That's always a point for celebration.
What?
We'll just do maybe one or two for insurance. One or two more.
Isn't it that you do a botch job and you're kind of in bits and it's all messy in bits and pieces.
Yeah. So it could be like. Do you want?
Oh, that's
Do you
good.
want one
bastard.
push?
I'm gonna.
Or a
try
few.
and drop a few
Maybe what we could do is
Alright.
when you're actually
If
standing,
you
like,
have frenzied
you know,
stabs.
like this.
Yeah, but
Sorry,
after
what
that,
did
when we think you're dead, I'm
Into
you
his chest.
bastard. you
Yeah,
bastard.
yeah.
Oh, into his chest.
Enemy.
I'm thinking, what's funny?
All
Like,
right.
it's kind of like the Fight Club, the punch in the ears.
So it could go. Or this way. And then we're like,
Yeah.
okay.
We-
Die, motherfucker!
Bastard! And I'll just throw a few fakies and we'll see if it works. Clunk.
Should we do the dialogue with it?
Ma, I want out.
So where are we at?
Oh my-
Yeah.
That might be sore.
But it's only fake.
But do you know generally how to do a fake hair pull, isn't it? Usually you put the hand on the person's head and then your hand goes on their
That's what
hand.
they do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
And then it's basically the link between the hands is taking the
Yeah.
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah. It's like a drowning thing.
Yeah, exactly. That's
But are you gonna lift? You're just gonna pull my head up a little bit.
I think I'll just, if I pull you and
Maybe pull me away a little
drag
bit
you
from.
with it. Yeah. Maybe that
Yeah.
won't work.
That might work.
like
I might get down. I might get down a bit.
well.
Yeah, sure.
Like,
Oh, so you mean like just maybe pull her up and just go like, yeah, maybe, yeah. You don't drag it that far away then.
yeah.
Yeah. You, all you do
I
is
can
you
start
just,
moving away a little
you just
bit
need to
anyway.
bring her over here and that'll save you bother dragging her.
Yeah. I guess it's one of those things, yeah, but I just have watch me drift. Okay.
Well, there's two things I wanted to achieve visually and on a production standpoint with the movie. Number one, I didn't want it to look like your stereotypical Irish movie, and number two, I wanted it to look a little bit more expensive than it was. And I think I was successful on both accounts because I think the actors are very, very, very good, and they all have very mild accents, so it's not like the real typical. Secondly, anybody who has seen the movie, they've all said to me that, with regards to the whole idea of trying to make it look a bit more expensive than it is, that I've succeeded with it because most people have said to me that it looks like we actually had a substantial budget for it, and I can assure you that was something we didn't have. We didn't have any money at all for this. It wasn't any attempt by me to prove to myself or to anybody else that I can do makeup, I can write, I can do this, I can do that. That wasn't the case in the slightest. What happened was I actually met with 2 or 3 makeup ladies, and they all turned the movie down flat because number one, they didn't like the fact it was an unpaid project, which nobody in this movie got paid. Number two, they didn't like the fact that it was being shot pretty much on a part-time basis. Whenever the weather was good enough, we would shoot. So they said to me, we want something concrete. You have to give us a fixed date. If you can't give us that, we can't help you. So that's why, as I said, I met with three makeup artists, and for whichever reason neither of them could do it. And I was also in email contact with a few others, and they also told me where to get on and where to get off, which is why I ended up doing it myself. So the makeup, all of it, for better or for worse, was done by me actually.
Well, it can be quite grueling at times. I mean, there's a lot of physicality for my role and a lot of abuse that I have to put up with, but there's just the level of enthusiasm on the set and with the cast and crew. It makes it worthwhile, and you know, we get to see the rushes from time to time, and you can see what we put in is up there. So yeah, happy with that. But I'd be happy not to be crawling around the forest in a few weeks' time too. Lovely as it is to commune with nature, but some walking parts where I can move my legs again. I'm really looking forward to that.
We were shooting the scene where his character Greg meets the vagrant, the drifter, for the first time, and part of what is said in the script was the vagrant was supposed to put his foot on Noel's chest and drive him backwards onto his back. And we did a few takes of this, but unbeknownst to any of us, Noel kept altering position for every take. As he altered the position, he was coming closer and closer to a very large tree. So there was one take that we did in particular. Austin put his foot on his chest and knocked him back, and Noel struck his head off the tree. And we actually thought that he was going to pass out. So we halted shooting while he recovered, but it was clear that he wasn't going to recover, at least for that day, because he was very, very light at it. He was retching and gagging, almost on the verge of puking. So we, out of concern, we had to stop, and he took maybe a week or two off, but then he was back as fresh as a daisy, 3 weeks later, and we shot the scene again and we got it in the can.
Listen, about what I said earlier, I didn't mean anything by it. I just had an argument with the girlfriend and I was annoyed, and I tend to fly off the handle every now and again and just take it out on whoever's nearest. My girlfriend says I need to just stop being fuck.
Shit. You okay?
What's this now?
You need maybe 5 minutes?
Yeah, I need a minute.
Yeah, then there was another incident with Noel. This was actually quite disturbing at the time it happened. We went out that morning. This was July 2008. It was actually, we'd gone back for some reshoots of stuff that didn't come out the first time around, or had continuity issues the first time around. So we were out there that day, and Noel began to have breathing problems, and to all intents and purposes, the guy, as far as I can see, was having a heart attack. I even said to him, I said, "No, will we stop?" And he said, "No, I'm okay." So we would shoot a bit, and he'd be stopping, and he'd be holding his hand up, and he'd be gasping for breath, and finally I said to him, I said, "No, seriously, I'm starting to get worried here. You don't look too well." And he was like, "No, I'm okay. We'll just do a bit." So I remember in one particular scene, I had him holding a wooden spear above his head like this, and the guy was so weak he couldn't even. I would be like saying higher, and every time I'd say that, his arm would drop down again, and I'd say higher, and every time, once again, the arm would drop. And it was just a simple act of holding up a wooden spear in his hand, and he wasn't able to do it. And that would give you some idea as to how weak he was. And so finally, he wasn't able to stand up. So we had to call a taxi for him and take him to the hospital. And thankfully, it only ended up that it was, I think, exhaustion. But at the time, it was pretty freaky, because he did actually look to me like he was having a heart attack. But once again, to show how determined he is, he came back less than a month later, and he finished what he had to do, and that was it. The casting of the jogger was by far probably one of the more difficult castings we've done on this. because it was one of the scenes that was left fairly late in the schedule, I didn't actually get around to casting it until very, very, very late, obviously. So there was, I think, the actor we got, Robert O'Brien, he wasn't actually the first choice. I think there was two other guys involved initially. One guy said he would do it, but then when he read the scene, he changed his mind. I think he didn't want to suffer the humiliation of getting his head cut off on screen. Then there was another guy who was attached to do it initially, and for whatever reason he backed out of it as well. So that's where Robert O'Brien came in. So we were very lucky with Robert, because Robert came in very late in the day, and he made no bones about it. He came on board. I think he was a little bit bewildered by the shooting process that we had perfected out there in the forest after all that time, because Robert was expecting to just come in and sit down for maybe 2 hours and rehearse it, but instead I'd give him maybe 5 minutes and then we'd be shooting it. So for Robert, that was a big change, but yeah, he was very, very good, and I'm overall I'm very, very happy with him.
Did you know you'd have to do some dead acting?
I did, and I was asking people about the head of death, the whole kind of look. They said no, it goes limp, it goes kind of numb. So I thought,
The scene with the decapitation of the jogger, that was a very, very funny scene actually, both to watch and to shoot, but in particular to shoot. And once again, I just seen how dedicated Noel was, and I had a huge amount of admiration for him, because to shoot the scene, it essentially dictated that Noel lie on his back with a guy's head on his crotch. And Noel did this for a few hours at least. So I mean, like just for this single close-up of the head being put on Noel's lap, Noel actually just lay there with this guy's head between his legs. And what we did was, we had the guy lying on the ground, and so Noel's legs actually went over the guy's shoulders onto his chest, and then the guy lay back with his head on Noel's crotch. And Noel never complained, not even once, even though it was an uncomfortable position for him, particularly being a heterosexual. We were debating about whether the jogger should be male or female. Malcolm wanted to cast a voluptuous blonde in the part, but I vetoed that very, very early on, because I told him this. I said, if we cast another female in this part, they're gonna kill us.
I always felt, especially after reading the script, that the part of the jogger should really be a woman. It's simple. I always thought the script was a homage to 70s slasher flicks. It's simple as that. It was nothing to do with misogyny or anything like that. I always felt that it would have been a string in her bow just having a woman in that role. And I sort of feel somewhat vindicated now with the upcoming releases of I Spit on Your Grave and Last House on the Left. So ultimately I feel we would have been ahead of our time if we had had a woman in that role. But I was vetoed, and the rest is history.
The opening scene, you have Celine Mullins. She's nearly abducted. And then you have Siobhan Lamb getting her legs broken. So I just said that to him, that if we have the jogger as another female, voluptuous or not, and we see her getting her head cut off, they'll just take us apart. They'll just say that we're masochists, we're misogynists. So that's why I knew the jogger had to be male, and I think overall it was the right decision, because I'm not one for needless violence against women, unless the story really needs it, of course. But I don't think it would particularly have worked in this situation. So I think definitely changing the gender of the jogger to a male was, under the circumstances, I think was the right thing to do.
3 months is a long time for anybody not to cut their hair. You have to be grateful to Austin for sticking it out that long. It was quite a sacrifice, I think, on his part, especially considering he wanted to cut his hair for such a long time. I remember Peter telling me that he started pestering him every week or two to wondering when the finish date is going to be. And
walking into a production like this, where it's going to go on for 12 months plus, everybody has to make sacrifices, which is why when we began shooting, Austin actually said to me, he said something under the circumstances. Looking back, it's naive at the time, but he said to me, "Is there any chance we'd be finished shooting by Christmas 2006?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll certainly endeavour to try." Why? And he said, because he wants to cut his hair. He said that he's going home to Galway to celebrate Christmas with his parents, and he wants to cut his hair for Christmas and shear off the dreadlocks. And unfortunately for him, it turned out he actually didn't end up cutting them off until November 2007. So that was a full year after he initially said to me when would he be able to shear them off. It's fair to say that Cian Furlong, the composer, wasn't always the original composer that I was going to use. There was another guy on the scene earlier on, and he was somewhat attached to the project for maybe the best part of a year.
I remember some months back he invited us to his house to listen to some samples of music which he had previously worked on. So there we were, myself and Peter, sitting on a couch, and he played us a sample of this work. It was sort of odd. It was a strange mix of a Massive Attack sort of sample with odd sort of sound bites to it. And that in itself was fine, but the type of movie that Hell's Drifter is, it would have been totally unsuitable for this movie. And I remember thinking to myself at that stage, shit, we're in some trouble here, because if this is the type of music he does, then we're fucked.
But what happened was, even though me and him, we know each other a while, there was a bit of creative friction, and after, a certain amount of time had passed when I thought that he actually had composed some music, and as it turns out, he hadn't done anything. Cian is one of these hands-on composers who almost resents the director telling him what to do. Cian made it very clear to me that, you're the director, I'm the composer. Give me your movie, I will compose the soundtrack for it, and just leave me to myself. And that's exactly what I did. So I essentially gave him the movie. There was very, very little input from me. I would just maybe text him small pointers, most of which he discarded anyway. But that's the way he is. He's just a very hands-on guy, and I didn't hear anything from him for maybe 4 or 5 months. And I was even wondering, was he still composing the score to my movie? And then he just approached me one day out of the blue, and he told me he had it finished, and I listened to it, and I thought it was a cracking score, and I think I was very, very lucky to get him. Began pretty much on the first day of principal photography, so it's not like a situation where I wait till everything is shot and then I start editing. I didn't do that, because if I had done that, it would have taken 14 months, and if footage had been damaged, or if something hadn't come out, it would have meant going back and getting the actors to assemble again and reshooting stuff. So that's why I couldn't wait till the end of principal photography to edit this. I actually had to begin on the first day. So that was one thing. And secondly, it was a 14-month process to shoot this movie. If I had waited till the end of those 14 months to shoot, to do the editing, it would have been maybe another year on top of that, and it was just something I wasn't prepared to do. So that is why, from the day we started shooting rather, in December 2006, right up to the reshoots in July 2008, I was editing in between. So it was like an ongoing thing. I would shoot when I wasn't editing, and when I wasn't editing, I was shooting, and that pretty much was the process for the best part of almost 2 years. There's essentially two versions that I put together of Hell's Drifter. One is what I would class as the director's cut. It runs about maybe 98 minutes. The other version is that version which was basically made by consensus of other people's opinions, telling me to, cut this thing here and cut that thing there and knock it down a bit. So that version will run to maybe somewhere between 80 and 85 minutes. So the remaining scenes would probably end up on the DVD in the form of supplementary material, deleted scenes. But the version on the DVD will be a lot shorter than my original cut, the cut that I initially came out with. Well, I've checked the footage, all of it came out. So unless there's some major hiccup with the camera.
Don't start anticipating problems.
It's been a long journey.
It has. An odyssey.
We've all aged a year.
Yeah.
So I'm happy for it to be over. I think it was a bittersweet affair, to be honest, because I'd lived with this thing for so long. We all had lived with this thing for so long that when it finally came to an end, it was not quite the climax that I was expecting. It was a little bit anticlimactic because it was over and done with.
We're done! I'm totally pumped. I finished this movie the way I started, on an action scene. It's all about the action. I mean, when I was hired and I was told I didn't have any words in the script, I was like, right on! It's all about the action! It's all that fucking matters, baby! Woo!
Yeah!
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 Alright! Chug, chug!
Mr. Austin Pryor!
Woo!
Firstly, I hope people get to see it. A wide audience gets to see it, because it's a good story. It'll keep you entertained. Other than that, I just hope people are pleased with it and they enjoy it. We've all put a lot of blood and sweat into this. Every single member of the crew and cast has been working as much as we can on it.
It's been great, Forrest. I've been here for I'm a year. It's like my second home now, this forest. It's great. Oh, I'll be glad to get the hell out of here. That's it. I'll be glad when I get to see the film. It'll be fun.
You're done.
I can burn this now.
Yeah.
And I can reap these out of my head. And it's going to be a great picture. And it took way longer because of the random factor than we ever expected it to. But it's been brilliant. I'm actually going to, in a weird way, miss it because, this every weekend, weather dependent. I've come out and done this, and it's been great fun to work on. So I'm not going to know what to do with my time.
While we were doing it, it was a lot of fun. Even though it was very, very difficult, it was a lot of fun, but it was very, very hard work. But it was a big change for us all because it essentially meant we weren't going to be shooting as much. I am glad it's over, and I certainly wouldn't like to be on day one of principal photography. No way. Action.
They're right in the back of my throat. And they went in and I breathed them in.
Oh fuck, are you okay?
Yeah, fuck it, it's grand, let's go.
Action.
So great, what can I do for you?
Okay, can we do that again? You looked a little bit confused.
Yeah.
Hang on, their hair back again.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sean.
They're walking away and see, we're ignoring them, so they're just
Okay.
lost interest.
Yeah, you ready?
Okay, yeah. 1, 2, 3, action.
Fuck's sake, not you, doggy. Oh my god.
Made it. Yep, perfect. Okay. Ring ring. Okay, anybody want to have a cigarette? I mean, does no one want to have a cigarette?
No, I'm
I'm alright.
I'm going to keep going and just to let everyone know, like we basically change everything. What you see on the screen, you know. We let Peter keep the writing credit, but it's just to keep him happy.
Well, when Peter first wrote this, it was actually a science fiction set in a futuristic barn, and he said, "Why don't we take it to a forest?
Easier, it'd be cheaper."
They're shooting.
Sorry.
Greg?
Run! Run as fast as you can! Don't let him catch you! And remember what I said!
If Greg's performance, Noel's performance was good in that shot, it's because it was informed by the clap. It was a convincing clap.
It was because of the clap.
It's all the clap. The clap won't even end up in the final film, but that's why I wanted, to say this message.
What about you? I could bring you with me. We train. But get help, please, just go. I'll come back for you. Hold on, okay? Please, just go. Go! Okay.
He's dead. I'm gonna fuck his shit up.
Did you two just go? Go!
Yeah.